Welcome, everybody, to The Revolution Will Not Be Televised. It will be streamed. This is a conversation about leadership in life in a digital world. Who is this conversation designed for? I am so glad you asked. It's designed for entrepreneurs. It's designed for consultants, digital content creators, social media influencers, corporate executives, educators, and as my brother Stephen says, Lottie Dottie, and everybody who wants to maximize their potential, mobilize their purpose, and multiply their productivity. Basically, this conversation is for folk that's being treated like underdogs that's ready to be the top dog. But we're excited about what we're going to be talking about today. I'm one of your hosts, Dr. RickyAllmon. You're going to hear from our other host in just a moment, Reverend StephenThurston. And I need you to do something for me. So we have something we do. It's become a tradition now for The Revolution Will Not Be Televised. It will be streamed. We have a quarantine roll call. So while we're still navigating this COVID-19 experience, we want to do our quarantine roll call. So as you come on, I see some of you were waiting in the room while it was counting down because you want to have a front row seat to this conversation. And I promise you, you don't want to miss it. As a matter of fact, when this conversation is over, you're going to want to pay for the seat that you have in this virtual space. But let's do a quarantine roll call. So just rep your city wherever you are. I know some cities and states, they've lifted the stay in place order. But if you still got enough sense to stay in your place, come on here and let us know how you're doing. Let us know what city you're repping. I can tell in our room, we've got ATL up in the house. We've got H-Town in the house. And of course, Stephen and I are holding the Chi-Town down as much as we can, Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan style. And we're both Scottie and Michael, so don't try to figure out which one we are. We're both of them in one individual. So let's get into this. Stephen, how you doing, man?
All is well, man. Excited for another opportunity for us to pour into people's lives, help, encourage, inspire, and hopefully shift somebody's way of thinking so that they can become the best version of themselves, man.
So I have a question for you. I've heard people talking about that during this quarantine, it doesn't feel like they have 7 days in the week. Every day feels like one day.
Yeah.
And maybe we can share this question with our guest co-hosts before we introduce them. What day of the week does every day feel like to you?
Monday morning.
That's what you told me yesterday. Why does it feel like Monday?
I'm still in a routine. So I still get up, I still get dressed, I still go into the office, though no one's there, just to create a pattern. Otherwise, I'll sit and watch TV all day, Price is Right, Let's Make a Deal, and eat. And so I needed to create routine and structure. So it feels like I'm getting up and going, just like I was before all of this hit.
Well, go ahead and introduce our guest co-hosts and let's pose the same question to them. I think this is a good place to start.
Sure.
And I concur with you. I almost laugh at myself. And I think it's that old school in me. Three of us on here are PKs. And so we watch our dads get up every morning, put on the whole suit, with the whole briefcase. Like, I have a funny story to tell. I can remember I was like 6th grade and we were taking school pictures. I love school pictures because I would get to wear my suit. But my mom wouldn't let me wear the whole 3-piece. I get to wear the top of it for the picture, and I had to have on jeans at the bottom, and I wanted to feel like a whole preacher. So I found one of my dad's old briefcases.
Yes, sir.
And my siblings reminded me of this. I would literally walk with that briefcase through the mall.
Me too, Rick.
On picture day with the whole suit on, man. So
yes, sir.
What I'm basically trying to say is we all need counseling. We need help. So maybe Keva's going to help us. But go ahead and introduce our guest, Stephen. And look, while you're coming in, please shout out where you're coming on from. We like to know who's in the neighborhood. Isn't it amazing that the whole globe has been conflated to one virtual neighborhood?
That's it.
And to think that now virtual is reality. We used to talk about virtual reality. The reality is virtual is reality. That's so if you're in this neighborhood, go ahead and shout out. I can actually post your comment to the screen. So, if you want to be shouted out, you shout out and let us know where you're coming on from. Before Stephen gives the introductions, let us say a special thank you from The Revolution Will Not Be Televised. It will be streamed to all of our first responders, medical professionals, law enforcement, government officials, pastors, and leaders around the globe who have made people their priority. You put people before economics. You put people before your political agendas. Thank you for putting people first. We greatly appreciate it. And so, especially our first responders, y'all are doing the thing. Y'all the superstars around here. So we thank our first responders. I see comments coming in now. Pastor Ed Harris from Horry, thank you for being here. Mary, I see you. Go ahead, Stephen, with our introductions, and we'll get this party started.
And people, please hit the share button so that other people connected to your circle of influence can be inspired and encouraged by what's shared today. Well, many of you all know I'm the oldest son of StephenThurston. I got an older brother. Before the rumors get out, my dad did not have another child. That's not how this happened. But we met later in life, and that family adopted me into their family once I moved to Atlanta for Morehouse College. And my big brother is on with us today, Pastor JasperWilliamsIII, pastor of the church in the greater Atlanta area. An amazing guy with an amazing voice and an amazing story. And Jay, thank you for coming on today to share with us, to inspire us and to encourage us. Then I'll jump over to Keva. We were able to meet 3 years ago. I was on a radio show, invited to do a radio show in Houston. I was in Chicago, and there was another voice on the other end. And then later on, I got a phone call that the other voice wanted to meet me. And so
she knew you needed help. She could tell from your voice that there was some issues that you needed to work through and work.
Real Pippen Jordan stuff going on.
That is not. I'm gonna let you make it.
I agreed to meet with her and connect with her and help her along this life's journey. So KevaHorry from Houston, she's got an amazing story as well. And I think, Rick, people are just going to be helped by the perspectives that our guests have to share today. So with the question that Rick posed, Jay, what are you doing on a day-by-day basis to keep your sanity and keep focused on where you're going in life?
Yeah, man. First, glad to be here. Thank you so very much for the invitation to join in the conversation. And I'm so glad to be not only sharing with you two brothers, but indeed to my sister, Steve. Rick, that had me thinking for a minute. What day am I stuck in? And I settled on Thursday.
Okay.
Typically, my Thursday is more open than other days, but it's also on Thursdays that more unscheduled events happen.
Wow.
Those phone calls, those emergencies, those text messages, all that kind of stuff. And what looks like might be open or free time, man, I have been living in Thursday since all this stuff happened.
Wow.
Oh, and let me just say, Steve, you really need to be careful about sound bites. Reason being is because since the revolution will not be televised, it will be streamed. So people can sound grab stuff. I've known Steve for a while, and it wasn't about adopting him. It was about him adopting me and adopting us. And what an honor to be called his big brother.
How long have you known him, Jay? How long have you known Stephen?
Gosh, let me see. I think Joe graduated high school in 96. I graduated in 95. Well, 95, 96. When did 96? Okay. He graduated in 96. My dad and Steve's dad, Dr. Thurston, they
wait, hold on. Pause right there. So just in case there's somebody on this planet who doesn't know who your father is, they see the third behind your name and they're like, Jasper Williams the third. Please just quickly let people know who your father is, just in case there's somebody that was just born today and they don't know. Will you please make them aware?
That's funny and that's kind. Yep, Jasper Williams is my dad. It's funny, dad has always gone just by Jasper Williams. In Salem, it's pastor, but for so many years, even as it continues now. I was just talking to him on yesterday, and people still honor and reverence his longevity and what he's done. And so if you just take the third off, that's my dad.
Right. That's going to make a whole lot of sense to y'all when we get into our subject matter. Stephen, please introduce our other guest, who is the queen of the video podcast today. We brought some fragrance in the room today. Yes, and so go ahead and introduce her, please.
She's one of Houston's elite residents. She has a rich history and a rich life. So many layers to it that I think relates to so many people. She's a 7-time champion. So I'll let her kind of break that down for you. Come on, Keva, tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are.
You meant rich as in substance. I'm still that run real deep. But yeah, I'm a resident of Houston. I'm a former NBA wife. Was married to Robert Horry for 13 years. And I had a daughter who had special needs, very rare chromosome abnormality called 1p36 deletion syndrome. And I was able to chronicle my experience raising her while being married to a professional athlete as he was winning championships. So this is a copy of it, Glamorous Sacrifice, Life in the Shadows of Championships.
Yes. Please get that book.
Yes. It's on Amazon.com. Yes. So yeah, and I have a foundation, the Allmon Rev Foundation organization. So I just bring awareness to people who don't know about the rare chromosome abnormality. And also I'm just very active in the special needs community. So.
Thank you for your work that you do. I've literally seen people's lives impacted, and that's a special community. I do some work with people with special needs too. So they're a great group of people, and Keva and her organization do some amazing work to impact their lives in a positive way. So Rick, we can dive into what we want to talk about.
Let's go, man. Before you do that, let me shout out some people. So we've got Baton Rouge on here. We've got Wichita, Kansas. We've got more Chi-Town. Of course, Chi-Town's come through heavy. We've got Grand Rapids, Michigan on here. Before Stephen gets into the crux of this subject matter, I want a few more people to shout out where you're on from. We want to engage our community. So we're not just on here just to talk at you. We want to engage with you. Also, while we're having this conversation, if you have questions or comments, please type them. And I'm going to share them. We'll talk about them. We want to add value to you. Hey, Brandon, I see you from Chicago. Thank you for coming on. But we want to engage you because I believe, particularly this subject we're getting ready to deal with today, you're going to find relevance in it. I believe it's going to resonate with some aspect of your identity. And hopefully when you come out of this moment, you'll come out with more clarity, more confidence, and a greater conviction and commitment to be true to who you know you were created to be, and not to live under any shadow that's not designed to define who you are. So I just gave y'all clues and hints as to what this subject is about to be about. So come on, Steve, man, walk us through this. Hey, Fort Worth, Texas is in the building. Hey, Maurice, good to see you. Let's go.
Cool. So I'm sure all of us on here can relate to this comment being shared with us. I know I've heard it all through my life, and it's a comment that I hate so much. People will say, hey, you're StephenThurston, you're Steve's son. Man, if I could have your hand, I'd cut mine off. I'm like, no, why would you say that? And they have this grandiose idea of what it's like to be the son of. And Rick, of course, with who your father father is, Keva, with who you were married to, Thurston, with who your dad is. We've all heard that comment or something similar to it. And I've discovered in my 41 years of life that there's power and privilege that can come with that, but there can also be a level of pain that many people don't get to see because they just see the public persona. They don't get to come behind the veil and see what life can be like. Or sometimes they fail to see that our father's friends can become our friends, but our father, our husband's enemies become our enemies too. And so we wanted to kind of deal with this today, bring this up. You may not be married to, you may not be the son of, the daughter of, but you could work for somebody who's a looming figure. You could have encounters and be engaged with people who just have this shadow that shines over you, and you want to learn how to navigate and move through life and still be successful in spite of or in addition to. So that's really the framework and the point of this session of our sharing today. So let's dive into this pressure aspect, the pressure and the privilege. Keva, there's a show on that I loathe, that many people love, NBA Wives, and they paint this presentation of what it's like to live that lifestyle. I'll just drop it there and let you pick it up from the angle of the pressure and the privilege of being in this shadow.
Well, let me correct you. I think it's called Basketball Wives, legality purposes. Anyway, that is just it's a show, and reality TV is not necessarily our real reality. As a whole, I can attest to some very beautiful, smart, hardworking, not only wives, but mothers and business owners. And they have foundations and very philanthropic, and, the list goes on. So that to me is just entertainment, right, wrong, or indifferent. Doesn't depict the side of all of us, but they are some very, very smart women, and they're just doing their thing, making money.
Yeah. So what have been some of the pressures that you faced in being a part of that world, that culture?
Honestly, I could step into that world. I could step in and out of it, kind of, sort of. My daughter really sheltered me, so to speak. She consumed my life. I was her primary caregiver. So when I needed to step into that world, I did. But for the most part, I was around normal, hardworking, and I hate that term, normal.
Right.
But yeah, I really do. But everyday working moms and dads who were taking their children to therapy and sitting in that waiting room, hearing the kids cry in the back because they were being pushed really hard to, meet their goals and make progress of their own health-wise. So when I needed to go to a game, I did. When I walked out of that arena, I was in mommy mode almost all the time. So I didn't really feel pressure until my ex-husband's name started becoming a household name. When people started noticing him or noticing the name on my credit card or my license, or that was different.
What did that pressure feel like to you? Like when it first started, like if you could encapsulate it in one word, and I'm sure you could use a whole lot more than that, but if you could put in one word, what did it feel like?
Colorful, because different people received me different ways. Sometimes it wasn't so nice. Other times it was fake. And other times it was very genuine. So,
did you find that a lot of what you felt was an extension of how they felt about him?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. In many cases, not all, but many. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I want to intersect right here, Stephen, if I can, before you continue in your engagement, because I was thinking about something as Keva was talking that I think all of us should speak to, and that is what is our perspectives of our names? Those of you looking at the screen, we use government names today on purpose. So I've got my whole name out here. I will not tell my middle name. Anybody who knows it, and if you're on this live, I'm going to pray for you if you put my name out there, but I'm going to pray for you in all kind of languages. But my full name, Richard V. Allmon II. StephenThurston is the second. Jasper Williams is the third. KevaHorry is living with the name of the Clutch Man, you know? So the question I want to pose to us as we go farther in this conversation is, how does the name feel? To Keva's point, talking about that pressure, that weight. And I like that word. I think you said colorful, right? I think that's a fitting word because we deal with the pressures of the name from different camps, right? Different perspectives. So, Stephen, I'm going to start with you since, you know, you're the point guard on the day. Your name, how does it feel to you? What does it represent to you?
Yeah, I enjoy the name. The good has always outweighed the bad in my context. It's helped me from a legal perspective. Stuff because we don't use junior or senior, so we can hide assets when I need to hide assets. We can maneuver and manipulate.
Ricky, hit the mute button.
I'm trying. It won't even work.
He won't learn. I keep telling him somebody gonna see this and come out to his tail.
He just throwing his daddy name all over the place.
Or is it his? Me, you know.
You don't know which one.
Oh, wow. Okay.
How many stimulus checks you get?
Wow.
We do have different social security numbers, so we know there's a limit.
Right.
But I've enjoyed the name. It's worked. It's worked.
Yeah. So like my dad told me, my dad would say, if bills came to him and my mom's house, he would say, if it's a bill, Ricky, it's yours. If it's a high credit score, it's mine. I'm like, well, no, let's trade. Give me the high credit score. You pay all the bills. So Jay, talk about it, man. So Stephen, if you had to take Thurston, I mean, because you've got a serious legacy here in Chicago. I mean, grandfather, father, and then that extended family unit. If you say Thurston, give me it. And it's funny because I've heard people use your last name as your first name. That's how much they make it your identity. Like, you would think your first name was Thurston. If you had to put Thurston in one word, give me a word to describe what Thurston means to you. You can only use one word.
Free.
Okay. Explain.
Because my great-grandfather, grandfather, father, and myself were all in this lineage of preaching. I was once told by Jesse Jackson that the freest black man in America is the black preacher.
Wow.
Because he had to depend upon the black people for the black dollar, and the white man never controlled him. And so I'm free to say whatever I want to say, to move however I want to move, to fight for whatever I want to fight for, because I don't take a white dollar. Nobody owns me. Nobody controls me. My history and my legacy has paved the way for me to speak truth to power in all contexts. So I'm free.
Wow, that's amazing. So Jay, talk about what the name represents to you, and then give your one word that would describe it for you.
Can I just back up, because
of course
you asked Stephen an initial question that I have a thought on. What other people think about the name is expectation. There is an expectation associated with the name Jasper Williams. Never will forget my first time preaching at New Covenant. I was in seminary. Dr. Thurston asked me to come up after I changed my underwear and said yes. But when he introduced me, he said, "Now, don't y'all schmote him over. we know his daddy in that swaggeristic way.
Right.
And so he even said that from his father. And so there has always been this expectation. Maybe we'll go down that road later. How I see it, I see that the name has opened doors.
Okay.
The name has opened doors. Steve started talking about the financial side. Me and Dad's credit has, particularly earlier on when I was younger, there was this commingling that was there, and I'm reaping the benefits. So that, of course, that isn't associated to a name, but I'm talking about stuff. In recognition, in favor, walking in events, and understanding and making the association. But that's dangerous because all of us, including Keva, all of us can get lost in that.
Yes.
And shy away from the opportunity to grow into our own.
Right.
It's very popular these days, our own brand.
Right.
And if I were to describe the name in just one word, it'd be plumb line. And I don't need super spiritual saints, and I understand the aim is set the plumb. I don't need all that. But plumbers use plumb lines as this measuring rod.
Right.
And I really believe that the name Jasper Williams, how does your hoop? How do you dress? Is it a Jerry curl or is it just a perm? What's your campus look like? Do you have a garage in your church? It's all this carnal, fleshly stuff. Yeah. Unfortunately, for that people would stop measuring there. But nonetheless, it is what it is.
Yeah. So
Let me jump in.
Yes.
So Jay, for those who don't know, that was your father who preached Aretha's funeral. Mm-hmm. And of course, there was some backlash from different camps. How did that impact you?
Man, I tell you, it was, there was such this barrage of hate, congratulations, questions, pushback. I felt for a minute I was the mailman. Tell your daddy, and it was some good and some bad.
And to create context on that, his father also preached her father's funeral, just to add context. I don't know if that adds insult to injury, Jay, to the hate you already get. But the reality is, I mean, it's quite monumental, the level of trust that the Franklin family had. Yes. And it speaks to the consistency of your dad, right? Which this is just an interesting conversation. We're talking about living beyond the shadows, but right now, everything we're talking about is from the shadows.
Right.
Which is the point we're trying to make as we go forward in this conversation. Like, we can't even talk about us. So how do you feel about, and then there goes the dad again, or there goes, in Keva's case, the husband again, or there goes the granddad, or so continue talking about that. But I just wanted to give context because there may be some people who don't know that your father preached Reverend C.L. Franklin's funeral. And then, of course, in contemporary times, he preached Aretha Franklin. So continue, please.
Yeah, Rick, I think that you're being very strategic, though, because you have to take the temperature of the room to even be able to understand what it is not to be in it. I got my car yesterday morning, and it registered. I got cold here in Atlanta. I had this cold spurt. It registered 71. But when I pulled out of the driveway, just in the driveway, watching the garage close, it dropped down to 55. And I think that's what you're doing. There's a different temperature in the shadow than it is outside of the shadow.
Right.
And I think that that's what people can blend. And I think that that's where rebellion comes for a lot of young pastors or immature pastors. What people don't know is that my temperature outside of Dad's garage has been calibrated by his voice, by his words. My dad never wanted me. I guess I'm pulling the car out the garage, huh? My dad never wanted me to be like him. He always assisted in shaping my voice, but the world don't see that.
Yeah.
Walking through the convention halls, can you hoop like your daddy? Are you moaning like your daddy? You know, I'm public, I'm private school, and I talk like a little, you know, very proper and I'm, you know, this, that, and the other. and that's what people see. So you get these Black preacher moments, but the way I was able to survive the transition of the climate change has been by a father's voice.
Wow. Keva, talk to us. What I mean, walk us through, one, the expanse of time. So how much time you've been carrying your last name. So how long you've had to deal with this shadow, or talk to us about when it became a shadow. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm sure it could have been the entire time that you've had the last name Horry, or there could be a distinct period of time, like you said, when he became a household name. But talk to us about the progression of that, how it's felt to you, how you perceive it. And then I know you said the word colorful when it comes to what you get from other people, because it's different based on the engagement. But then let's also encapsulate that and expand that in the context of where you are right now and what that one word would be now. You talked about what it was then, but after you describe what it means to you, what this name means to you, let's talk about what that one word would be now.
Let's see, I've had the name since 1997. We were married July 5th of 97.
Okay.
And, you know, honestly, Ricky, I can't say that I felt the shadows. It just kind of slowly kind of crept on.
Okay.
In a lot of marriages or relationships, there starts to be a competition. That was never the case for me. I had this huge sense of pride for him, what he did. And so I didn't view it really as a shadow until much, much later in my marriage. And of course, by then he was a household name, but it wasn't really, I guess, the sting of it wasn't felt until we were on a red carpet event and microphones. Not that I had anything to say, but when you think about a married couple, we're one. If
right.
You don't stand in between me and my husband so you can get the interview and act like I'm not there.
Wow.
So sometimes very invisible. So not just a shadow, completely invisible. But again, I didn't really harp on being the Mrs. or being in that lifestyle. My primary concern was my daughter. And I can look back on those years now because she's now deceased, and honestly say that God shielded me from a whole heck of a lot.
Okay.
You know, whereas certain things may have affected me if my time wasn't consumed with her. I could have reacted or felt things a little differently, but no, I was always supportive, always proud. Now what the name means to me, it still opens doors.
Okay.
We'll get some perks. We've been divorced now for 11 years next month. So now I would just say I'm walking into my own. Okay. And I don't really notice what it brings to me, really.
So you're owning you. You said something a minute ago. That stood out to me, and I think it's another level of this being in the shadows, and that is, how do you maintain your own light when you've been eclipsed? You know, it's one thing to be in the shadow, but to your point, it's a whole nother thing when you've been completely obscured, not because you don't recognize your value or your worth, but because external forces in their effort to be close to the light of whoever you're connected to, want to eclipse you. I remember my father, I'll never forget this. I remember my father standing in the pulpit, and he put a strong emphasis on having the right priorities. If there was one word that speaks to me from his name, is the word integrity. He would always say the greatest thing you have is your name. So no matter what else you have, no matter what other honor and accolades people give you, make sure you keep your name clean. And to the point you made, Jay, he would say to me, he's like, don't just do what I do, but find out why I do it. He said, you don't have to preach just like I preach. You don't have to administrate just the way I administrate. You don't have to dress the way I dress. But I need you to find out why I'm doing it so that you can be true to yourself. And so in understanding that and that integrity, I think it's so important to recognize how to stand in your light when you've got other people connected to who's connected to you and who you're a part of that eclipse you. I don't believe they're always doing it intentionally, but it's because they like the warmth of being in the light of that person, that they don't recognize that it's just as brilliant over here too. If you connect. So talk to me about how you manage being eclipsed, because you've got women watching this podcast. You've got professional women who know they have value, that are connected to pastors, that are connected to entrepreneurs, corporate executives, and they're trying to maintain their identity, much like yourself, while they're excited about what their spouse is doing. They're like, look, I got a light too, but it's possible to feel eclipsed and be eclipsed by the people connected to the person you're connected to. Speak to how you maintain your light. Thurston, I'm giving it back to you after this. It was just low-hanging fruit. I had to grab some.
No problem, man. Get it.
But speak to that, Keva, how you maintain your light while being eclipsed by the intentions of others.
I'll give you a perfect example. Robert and I were invited to a dinner party. There were several physicians there. He had opened up a physical rehab facility. So we were meeting with doctors, and I think it was probably about 10 of us. And we were just divorced at that time. So it was still really new as to how we would engage each other, or if we would engage each other. So a really awkward time. But at that dinner, I will never, ever, ever forget, prior to us being seated at the table, there was kind of a mixer, just drinks beforehand and kind of networking and talking a little bit with each other. And this physician walked up to Robert and myself, just the three of us standing there. And he totally kept his eyes engaged, locked into Robert. Like,
wow.
Again, I was invisible. And once we were seated and dinner got going, conversation was flowing, Robert kept tossing the ball to me, if you will, in conversation. Well, Keva can tell you more about that, or my wife can tell you more about that. And so the more I kept talking, this same physician kept looking, and he told another person there, and they in turn told me, I did not know that she was as smart as she was. I just thought she was another pretty face.
Wow.
So that was, I can't even describe that feeling. It was just so insulting. And I have never, if ever, if I've ever been talked about in that way, it's never gotten back to me. So I think at that point, I realized that people are going to perceive what they want to perceive. Mm-hmm. And again, going back to Jasper's comment about expectation. He had seen the show, Basketball Wives, and that's what he expected. So he didn't respect me right off the bat.
Wow.
Give me a chance. So, Stephen, you should have had my son on this call too. Attest to the whole. I remember when he was in kindergarten, he signed him up for basketball for the first time. He was 5, and I later found out that all the coaches had a fight, literally, not a physical fight, but argument as to who was going to get my son on their team.
Wow.
Well, Keva, at 5, he was like 5 foot. So I would have
Not true. He was not. He didn't start his growth pattern until
he's 8 foot now.
5. But anyway, I thought, like, how just stupid can you be? He's 5. He's not gonna walk in this gym and start 3 pointers from the door at the back of the gym.
At the buzzer.
At the buzzer, right.
There's a process to this. There are levels to this. And let's start with the foundation. He's got to learn the game first.
Right.
So, and even still, he's a sophomore going into his senior year at Texas A&M. He plays football. But even in that, people expected him to play basketball because his dad did. Wow. And I still I'm surprised Cameron plays football. He didn't want to play basketball. So he chose a different path. So not compare him or, have that level of expectation of him.
Right.
But I told him many times, son, it doesn't matter. You can play soccer. They're going to compare your athleticism. They're going to compare your work ethic. They're going to compare something.
Right.
But that's a place that he lives in, and he's done well thus far in handling that and establishing his space in that, how he manages all of that. So
he's maintaining his light.
Yeah.
And I think that's the critical piece of this is maintaining our individual light. I think all of us are unanimous in the fact that there are benefits with being in the shadow, because you can't have a shadow unless you have a light, right? So the fact that we're in a shadow means that there is a looming and large light that we've been blessed and fortunate to be connected with in our lives. At the same time, it's important for us to maintain our light. To Jay's point, drive out of the garage and see what our temperature is. Yeah. So, Stephen, back to you, man, as you lead us through this and guide us through this. We're trying to negotiate with shadows.
Sure.
While we're trying to navigate our light. So how do we reconcile that? Negotiating with shadows and navigating our light at the same time.
Third, I want to throw it to you because it was major in the kingdom of God in the Black church when you decided to make your departure and your exit from Salem to plant your own situation. And as you were doing that, I was watching you, and you and I had some private conversations, and I kind of felt a sense to move into a space where I was no longer at New Covenant, and you helped me to kind of navigate that out. We had a conversation, leaving the kingdom to follow the king was the title of our conversation that night. Blew up. So if you'd speak to that, because you've been able to create your own light and follow your own path. And there was, of course, people had their opinions and made assumptions and all of that. So speak to how you were able to navigate that and been able to stay in this space, even though things at times weren't as gravy as they were when you were in the space of a Salem.
Yeah. Three things popped up, and at least 3 of y'all understand this: people, pain, and purpose. People will adjust the lumens on the light. They will turn it up or they'll turn it down. Yeah. And that's affects the shadow. And I think all of us, your story, it just stabbed me in the heart. And part of the reason is because of my own wife. My wife in, more of a traditional church setting, there was an expectation that she had to have. She had to fight to establish herself. Yeah. but my pain resonated with what people were trying to do. And there was a resolution that I made with her that I'm not going to let people divide us or distinguish. If they can't talk to me, they can't talk to you. If they can't talk to you, they can't talk to me. And so that same kind of thing, people will adjust the lumens, but then I've got this whole pain model, but the pain of which my father, I think, fathered me on came from his own father. So my grandfather was a very, very popular preacher and had that tri-state area just on lockdown. And I've always heard this story many, many times. You can't walk down the street. People call the radio station. That's when people would, open the windows and turn on the radio. So you couldn't walk down. You could walk down the street and not miss a word of the sermon. I mean, that was and so my dad grew up in that light. And so as my father matured, he started understanding what it was like to live in that shadow with his father being a light. That pain helped bridge the gap to me. And so the to your question also about people pain, then there's purpose. When you find somebody that identifies with your pain and understands the power of the voice in people, they will help you get to purpose. And that is honor and call in life to pull people into purpose. I don't do well with immature folk that want to stay that way. But my calling is to pull folk along. I've been pulled along. I think it's part of my purpose. And then even Steve, your own testimony, what you said, I remember that. That was the title of the 1 year anniversary recap, Leaving the Kingdom to Follow the King. We played that for our 1 year anniversary. We turned 14 in January. And that's what I've done. I mean, and that's a whole nother story, but that's why I was able to give something that resonated here now, however long ago that was, 14 years. And you're right, it hadn't been gravy. The shadow, sometimes there was a dispersion that was cast standing in that shadow because nobody could understand being obedient. You know what? I've never told my story. I've never told my story publicly about what happened, how it happened, what my position was. I've shut up through all that kind of stuff. I had one goal, and that was to honor my father and what God was doing. It was to honor my Heavenly Father and to honor my father. And I couldn't tell it because of the pain and because of people and even because of fighting to get into purpose. And so I don't know what you asked me, but that's some answer for something.
No, it's actually great because I think there comes a point where you have to be willing to abdicate the throne so you can wear your own crown. And I think so many people miss out on the identity and the light that God has for them because they're so inextricably tied to the throne that named them. And so we start getting our identity from the throne that we forget, hey, there's a crown that I wear. Like, because I'm connected to this throne, there's a crown that's been put on me. But in order for me to get the balance I need between the shadow and the light, I've got to find the courage and the confidence to wear my own crown, even when I don't have the throne anymore. Even when, to your point, Jay, I'm not associated with Salem. To your point, Stephen, I'm not associated with Covenant. To your point, Keva, I'm no longer under the distinction of being the wife.
Even though we still got the same last name.
You're inextricably tied to the throne. You can't deny it, but you got to know how to live beyond it. And that's where the crown comes in. That's where you have to wear your identity and find the balance. While I give homage and reverence to the throne, I realize if I'm going to be free, I got to wear my own crown.
Keva, you about to say something?
I was just going to say, when you know who you are and know the value you possess, not in a superior way, it's just what you bring to the table.
Exactly.
Period. that's what's going to stand alone. So
hold on a minute. That deserves an applause. That you so here's what we normally do. Let me give y'all the tradition. We've established some norms on this show. So whenever somebody gives a life point, we give them this. That sounds familiar, Keva. You've heard that at so many sporting events. So that would be fitting for you. So I'm going to need you to repeat that one more time, because it's somebody listening. Somebody said they wish they could get a neighbor high five off what you just said. So I need you to repeat that one more time. I'm going to release this air horn on that so everybody will know the power of what you just said. Say that one more time.
When you are confident in who you are and your value and what you bring to the table, you have to walk in that, period. That stands alone. Whether you're associated with, connected to, or disconnected, it stands alone. So
there it goes, people. That's your life point for today. So Stephen, talk to us, man.
So what has life after for you look like, Keva? And then Jay, we'll get to you. Life after kind of coming from underneath the shadow. What are you working on now? As we've talked in private, you've talked about how you wanted to figure out what you want to be when you grew up. And I think so walk us through the process.
I'm still trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up.
Evolution never ends.
Right. Exactly. Well, after the divorce, the journey it got worse before it got better. I got the divorce, and a year later, to the month, I lost my daughter.
Wow.
So mourning the loss of a family, loss of a child, and still having to raise my son, it was a difficult place to be. So I think when he graduated high school in 2017, that's when I made a decision. It wasn't just something that happened. I made a decision to, okay, now it's time for me. Now it's time to figure out what I'm going to do with my life and my light, So the foundation was already started. And the book had already been written. And I'm realizing now there are other books in me.
Yes.
So that's where I am, writing a lot, reading more, networking with people that otherwise I would not have come in contact with.
Sure.
That I'm going back to school. I'm going to go back to school in the fall, get my master's.
You raised the question that I think everybody should be asking themselves that's listening to this conversation or that will listen. And that is, what are you going to do with your light? I think that's a very important question. If you're going to live beyond the shadows, notice we didn't say you live without the shadow. The shadow's coming with you. It's attached to you at the hip. But if you're going to live beyond it, you've got to ask yourself, what am I going to do with my light? How am I going to use my light to add value to somebody else? And what kind of shadow am I going to be? Because that's the reality. If you're using your light, you're creating shadows too. Yeah. And what kind of shadow do I want to create?
Yeah, I think an important piece to bring up about Keva, something that I really appreciate about her and her story when you have full context. She didn't chase this life or this lifestyle. He chased her in college. So she's not one of these, I was at the game, I was standing in the chute trying to wait, stand at the hotel in the lobby.
Very important.
She was there from the very beginning. From what I understand, she helped to develop the jump shot and some of the defensive skills. So she was there along the journey, and I think that matters.
That's very important.
I knew nothing about basketball when I came into the picture. He had to beg me to come to one of his college games.
Wow.
And at the time, very focused, even at that point, on school, and I worked part-time. So when I went, I had tons of questions, and of course, history took over, and I learned the game along the way, and I'm very proud of that. So I was able to help my son, and all the things that I've learned, I just feel like God doesn't waste anything. Whatever you've gone through, no matter how painful, no matter how hard, how difficult, or how great, he uses it all. And now I'm able to impart all of that wisdom and pour it into my son.
I've heard at least 5 books you need to write just from what you've shared today. I'm gonna give you the titles offline and give you the outline, because both you and Jay
and put some pressure on her.
Oh, it's coming. I have permission. Thank you. And I have a secret weapon that I'm married to, who she's friends with. I know how to apply pressure. We're gonna put a vice grip on her. So Jay, talk to us, man. How are you using your light? I know you're pastoring an amazing church in the Atlanta area. You and your wife, who I've never met before. Looking forward to meeting the rest of your family. But I had a chance to watch some of your relationship podcasts. She is insightful and humorous. And you got to have that in your life to get by. So talk to us about that. Let people know when you all come on as it relates to your live podcast with you and your wife. Talk about your church. Talk about what you're doing with your church now during this COVID-19 experience, and what ministry looks like for you in the future. I just gave you a whole bunch of work.
I'm taking notes.
So talk about how you're using your light.
Let me
Talk about, what you and your wife are doing in ministry, how people can connect to you all's podcast, and then talk about how you're navigating ministry through this experience and what ministry looks like for you beyond this experience.
I got it. I want everyone listening to understand that there is a threshold. There's a threshold in which the shadow stops. The problem is nobody knows where the threshold is. We can recognize the change.
That's good.
If you have a fire in a room, the room is a different temperature than it is in the hallway. Even if the doors are open, the further you move away from the fire, the less you feel the effects. And that's what starting the church has done. I mean, starting the church has really allowed me to see where I was, the courtyards, if you would, of where I was. I mean, I was being set up to and established to take over the church. I had a brother that was my partner in ministry, though Joe was 5 years younger. I mean, we were all an active part of the preaching, and man, I wasn't saving nothing. It was all custom Cartier, Rolexes, expensive suites and trips.
Wow.
That's where I learned it from.
And healthy. Come on now. You showed up in Atlanta in pink suits. Don't you?
Wait, he showed up in what color suits?
Pink. They were like pimp pink.
So he's been wearing. Wait, Stephen, they need to see your shirt. You got to stand up. So he's got on his pink shirt today. Yeah. So he's comfortable in that color. Okay.
His waist ain't but about that big. So he had the diaper strap around it. You didn't even need belt hooks. His bone.
Wow.
His sat the pant on top so it wouldn't slip. Do not start with me. I don't even know what I was saying. People understand that there's a threshold that you have to cross, and it's not until you get down the road some that you go back and see who you've become. One of my biggest awakening moments that I crossed the threshold, I was doing on air men's ministry, the only FM radio station in Atlanta, 102.5. And the host, Katie Bowe, was, God was doing something in his heart and this and the other. Anyway, I got on, I did about 4.5 years or so every Monday for 4 hours. For 2 hours, we talked to men. And so we have in Atlanta this praise in the park thing that happened. And I was trying to get backstage because I was on stage. I was supposed to greet the people, this and the other, Jenkins and Israel and all these named artists, praise in the park. I'm there, etc. So I go to security, and the lady had a bad attitude. And so I said, ma'am, I need to gain access. My name is on the list. My name is Jasper. Well, let me see. Who is anybody now? They ain't answering. I can't let you in. So, ma'am, I got the VIP band from, you say you got a band. What's your name again? So by this time, after wrestling with her, I said, my name is Jasper Williams. By this time, another gentleman had walked up on the outside of the gate, and he goes, Jasper Williams, that's Jasper Williams, Man Up Monday with KD Bo. It wasn't Jasper Williams, JasperWilliamsIII.
Right.
Or, this was very common, that's Reverend JasperWilliamsIII. I crossed the threshold. I had begun to establish my own brand, if you would. I've begun to walk in purpose and my personality and all those kinds of things. What I didn't know is that when I was leaving Salem, God was trying to grow me up. I had no idea about fiscal responsibility. I went to school on dollarships, not scholarships.
Wow.
I had 2 Acuras and a Honda and a couple BMWs and Range Rover. It was just from, Dad gave it to me. It was a part of what I was doing. And I hadn't grown into manhood. There's a difference in being an adult and being a man. And so the economy tanked, and here I am, how I'm gonna feed my family, and repo man, and behind on house note, and so all this stuff is converging on me because the shadow that I was standing in, the light was warm. And so even as I've crossed this threshold and continued, huge vision, but not necessarily was it God's vision. And so God had to grow me up. And so in all of that, we've established a Word Empowered Church built on the Word, experiencing the power of God. I've been trying to grow my virtual reach probably now for about 9 or 10 years.
Okay.
We were able to easily pivot because 2 years ago, we had just spent about $60,000 putting PTZ cameras and lighting and this, that, and the other, thinking it was for a local reach. But then in a week, it changed. And all we did was start streaming. I mean, that wasn't the headache.
Right.
And so all of this growth, I'm hearing Keva say the same thing. I hadn't heard much of you all's stories, but all this stuff was pushing me into purpose. I've always been a one moment kind of man, been with my wife for 22 years, married, just celebrated in March. But we've had to grow and fight through this thing. Our commitment, marriage isn't easy. But as we thought through this stuff and start trying to teach our people, man, we start realizing and seeing that our reach was beyond just the church in doing these once a year annual summits. And so we birthed Team Us. All I'm saying is that outside of the shadow, there's another light waiting to be turned up. And if we start leaning into God pulling us out to establish and to walk in destiny and to fulfill purpose and all these kinds of things, as opposed to, I'm going back to the shadow. I'm going back to Dad's credit card. I'm going back to the home that we lived in. And we start walking, we start realizing Matthew 6:33 is real, but seek ye first. Mm-hmm. This isn't a sermon, but I dare you to go back and read.
It's all right.
The pericope prior. Alliteration spirit of the preacher, that's the prognosticator, Lord, just hit me. So if you read the pericope prior, if you read what they were chasing, then Jesus says in Matthew 6:33, but there's a contrast, mm-hmm. if you seek the kingdom first, mm-hmm. then I'll add. I'm here to say there is no lack in my house.
Right. I
sit my kids through private school on faith. My daughter just finished her second year at college away. I send her money. There ain't no debt, no student debt.
Thank God.
Declared it. People trust me. God has an ear for every voice. Let me just dive.
Listen. This is the norm. You can't get a preacher and a half together and revival not break out. So
no, that's not the case, Ricky, because I ain't hit the table yet, and I did not Say, no music came in my
oh,
voice.
Lord. There we go.
Say that. I ain't gonna say it.
Oh, we about to start. So what is the website for your church and your ministry? And then what day and time do you and your wife come on with Team Us?
Team Us every Sunday. I work in reverse. Every Sunday at 8 o'clock, we're taking off Mother's Day. 8 o'clock. Join us on Facebook. You can join us a whole bunch of ways. But
okay.
Since we're talking primarily to Facebook audience, our page is Join Team Us. Join Team Us. There's some past episodes that are there. It's not teachy. It's very applicable.
Right.
The principles are, of course, biblically centered. But man, we have a ball. A couple of weeks ago, I prayed for the anointing of fun to hit, and man, that was so silly. There's a clip out about that, but we had a ball.
That's cool.
And so our church is the Church International website, www.thechurchinfo.org. If you go to our streaming page or the Facebook page, Relevant Life, here's the thing: our call is to reach the unchurched and the dechurched. And we figured that the cross can be repulsive to folk who need it the most.
Mm-hmm.
And so we figured if we created a lifestyle brand and preached the same message. And so Relevant Life TV is where we stream every Sunday morning. And there is an online campus that we're proud of. A whole bunch is happening there. Great community. Thechurchinfo.org/.
Keva, what you got going? Where can the people follow you, reach you, and connect with the work that you're doing?
Actually, AllmonRevFoundation.org, which is being reconstructed now. And I have a new page, a personal page coming, and it's in development. And that's new for me because I've never put myself out there.
Excellent.
Personal brand, but KevaHorry.com. And that should be done within the next 2 weeks. So I'm excited about that. And
please tag me. Please tag me. I would love to promote what you do and how you've done it. I've shared this on 3-4 platforms and stories, etc. because I respect you, Ricky. You know,
yes, sir.
What it is that you're creating content that people need to hear. Bringing folk behind the scenes. And I think that Steve Thurston is brilliant. He's good at what he does. He is he can be a risk taker. But y'all heard him say he ain't controlled by the man's money.
Eyes free. You know, it's crazy. I don't know if it's just this church vibe we're in, but I'm just like, this little light of mine. Like, I don't know why I'm feeling that. Like, the whole time, like the last 10 minutes, I've been in this little trance in my head.
Hit the click track. Let's create some harmony.
Get some praise going in here. Stephen, how can people connect with you? Listen, to Jay's point, Stephen is an amazing thinker. One of the things I enjoy, so I have 3 pet peeves in life before we get off. We have a real conversation. We're very transparent, brutally honest. So I have 3 pet peeves in life. The first one is patronage. It makes me itch when people come around you and act like they like you. So they say all the stuff they think they ought to say about you. I can't stand patronage. Parochial thinkers. People that just think small, they think linear. And then perfunctory conversation. Folk just talking to be talking, don't have anything to say. Those 3 things make me itch. But the thing that I love are thinkers. I love people that use their mind. And Stephen is one of those individuals. I mean, we can sit down and just start exploring a thought. And, you know, have you heard that thing 6 hours later? It's like that. Like, it's just, we're still talking it out and working it out. And the same can be said of our guest co-host. So Stephen, brilliant mind, amazing guy, likes pink. But he's got a book out. I'm going to do his press for him. I'm not letting him talk. He's the other host. He has a book out called Mirror Moments. If you don't have it, go get it. It's everywhere. Not everywhere. It's everywhere. Get the book. And he does a Mirror Moments conversation on Tuesdays at 3 p.m. Now, I need y'all to go back and listen to last week. He actually talked about his stalker. So if you want to know some of his business, he has a stalker. So go learn about that and how you can de-stalk your life. But he has Mirror Moments, 3 p.m. Every Tuesday. He's a project management consultant, a people moving consultant. He'll show you how to move people and projects. So yeah, go check all that stuff out about Stephen. So Stephen, what do you want to say about yourself?
Nothing. Y'all go check out RickyAllmon, strategist, brilliant preacher, brilliant thinker. He has a piece on Thursday nights at 8:30 Central Standard Time. He's been dealing with this piece on dinosaurs, and anybody in leadership needs to tap into that. We're in the 21st century, and so many people are living in the 20th century. So you need to tap into what Ricky has been teaching and sharing and expressing. And we need you all to go over to the private group,
yes,
private page on Facebook. The revolution will not be televised. It will be streamed. Need you to join the group. There are 3 basic questions. Real simple. Just answer those questions. We want to filter out, make sure we got the right people in the room. So if you don't fill those questions out, you ain't getting in.
You ain't getting in. And Stephen, they have to go and join and answer those questions, because we only leave this live stream up 24 hours on our respective pages. After that, it's only shown in the group. So you can only see the rebroadcast in the group. You got 24 hours to watch this on all of our pages.
That's why I couldn't find it.
Yeah. You got to join the group, Jay.
Yeah, I mean, now I understand.
Yeah.
Okay, how you gonna invite me on a show and don't tell me that there's a group? I'm gonna send you a bill.
That's on Stephen. Send the bill to Stephen. Don't send it to me.
No, the Zoom link is from you.
Okay, I'll take it. This is how we begin our friendship. But so go over to the group and listen. I have a special announcement today. This is my first time stating it publicly. I haven't even posted. All the posts will go up after this. This is exclusive for those who are a member of the Revolution. Will not be televised. It will be live streamed, or it will be streamed. Why do I keep adding live? But it will be streamed. For everybody that's a member of the group at 1:30 p.m. Central Time. That's 2:30 Eastern, Jay, where you are. That's 11:30 Pacific Time. I'm going to be posting in that group the opportunity to get a free Audible download of the Life Lessons audiobook. I narrated it in my own voice. I wrote this book last year. It's 31 Proverbs for a Life of Purpose and Productivity, and it's based on my favorite book in the Bible, which is the book of Proverbs. The reason is because I don't just want to give you philosophies and principles about life. I want to give you practical application so that you can maximize every area of your life. So just last night, the audiobook went live on, I hadn't even told you about it, Stephen, when I talked to you. I was saving it for the day. It went live on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes. And so I'm giving away 10 Audible downloads in the Revolution Will Not Be Televised group. If you're not in the group, you don't get it. So don't come telling me, well, I'm on your page. I'm one of your friends. Not going to work. You got to be a member of the group. That's going to happen at 1:30 today. I'll let you know what you got to do to get that. But go and check that out.
I feel like my questions. Can y'all, while I have y'all online, I know y'all all busy. You're going to be preaching and stuff tomorrow and praying and fasting and shaking. And y'all just go ahead and give me access. I just filled it out.
Okay, I'm going to do it right now. Hold on. I'm going to do it right we on so you can tell the world that we did it.
He was going to tell me something we're going to talk about. I'm still waiting on the outline. Let me see. I need to be, you let me in?
I'm about to let you in right now. I'm letting the world see.
I challenge everybody that's here to go. It's long, but it come up. If you type, the revolution will not be live.
No, the revolution will not be televised. It will be streamed.
That's what I typed.
Yeah, you got it. You accept it.
It popped up. It immediately came up. I answered the question, click the little check box. You don't need no THM. You got to be smart like Steve. But all you got to do is just is that quick.
It's done. Listen, Stephen, what do you think? I make a motion that we do a part 2 of this. Yeah. Because Keva and Jay have a lot more to share with us. They were being nice to us today. And, you know, we trying to make friends and let people know you and I have sense in other spaces. Right. They already know the reality.
I'd be honored to come back. Anything Steve asked me to do. Well, I can't say anything. But
no, you already said it, Jay.
You already said it. The whole world heard you. You can't take it back. No.
The sound bite.
You can't. Right. Sound bite. Like he told you. Sound bite.
I really think the 3 of us would get in trouble and that we would need Keva.
We do. We really do. Keva, would you honor us with coming back for a part 2, please?
I absolutely would.
Thank you.
And it's been a pleasure to be amongst such greatness. And in the words of your wife, Demi, I'm not afraid of greatness. It's been a pleasure to be here with such brilliant thinkers, and a pleasure to meet you, Jasper.
We're glad to have you here. And Keva just let y'all in on my personal story. I may share some about that, but that's an inside thing. Thank you for bringing that up, Keva. Look, again, thank all of you for watching. The revolution will not be televised. It will be streamed. I'm Dr. Richard Allmon II, along with my host, Reverend StephenThurston II, with our great co-host, Miss KevaHorry, and Reverend Pastor Dr. Elder Bishop Evangelist JasperWilliamsIII. Thank you for joining us today. Share this on your timeline, on all of your pages. You got 24 hours to watch it. If you're not a member of the group, you're going to miss out on the free Audible. Go join now. Have a great Saturday. Talk to you later.